Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, world. Welcome once again to Tuesday Talk with Key West Lou. I am your host, Louis Patron. We are having technical difficulties tonight. I'm not able to do the show over my usual equipment. I am not sure if you're getting the sound, the audio clearly. I hope you are. If you're not, I apologize. I have no way of knowing. So I am going to do my show, and hopefully after the show, someone's going to tell me whether it got through or not. Okay, if you have any questions, you want to call in, you want to talk to me, I don't care what you want to say, agree with me, disagree with me, the number is, and it's on the screen in front of you, 646-478-5731. I repeat, 646-478-5731. It's been another crazy week. Not only are the other countries in this world flipping out and doing all kinds of stupid, crazy things, but even our government is acting in the same fashion. I don't have to tell you this. I'm going to start with the United States government and Social Security. Now, what do they want to do? The government is threatening to close all, not just a few, all Social Security field offices. There's something like, 1,000 of them across the country that serviced 43 million people last year. 43 million United States citizens were able to go to their local federal building, their local post office, find out what office they had to go to for Social Security, go in, pick a number, get called, go up to the window, tell your problem to someone on the other side, and within minutes your problem was resolved. They are the most efficient federal program, federal operation going. The people, the staff know what they're doing. They're happy to help you. They do it with a smile. You need them. You need to go to these places because you want to know if you're approaching 62 or 65. Should I enter the program at 62 or 65? How much will I get if I'm 62? How much will I get if I'm 65? What will my monthly payment be, in other words? And suppose you're into a second or a third marriage. Your benefits get affected. Whether you're male or female, you have to know again how much you are going to get. You can't plan your future without knowing. If you need a new Social Security card, they are many times lost. That's the place you get it at, and they get it for you quickly. They print it right out there. If you need Medicare information, that's the place for it. The government wants to close them down. They're calling this Vision 2025. They're going to save money. They always save money the same way, by screwing the public. This is the way it works. And you know what they're going to do now if you have a problem? You can't run down to the post office or the federal building. You're going to go to one of two places. The Internet, and you know how it is. Did you ever try to figure anything out on the Internet involving the federal government? I mean, they give you A, B, C, D, E, F, and then 2 A, B, C, D, E, F, and 8 A, B, C, D, F, and it takes you to this page and that page. Or you can use an 800 number. They're going to provide an 800 number. And you know how those work, and it's already been projected that one number is going to tell you to dial 1 or dial 8 or dial 15, and you're going to go like this, and we all know how it works. And finally, if you are really in trouble and you're really desperate, you will get a human voice. India, they've already told us, from India. Now, they've recently closed some of these offices: Chelsea, Massachusetts, Columbus, Mississippi, Hickory, North Carolina, and Newark, New Jersey. Now, I don't know how the hell they can close down a Social Security office in Newark, New Jersey that has a huge population with relatively poor people who need all kinds of federal assistance. But yet they have done it. And that's the story of what's happening with Social Security and how your government is going to continue to take good care of you. Let me talk about the United States government in another fashion. We have the student loan program in this country because the cost of college has gotten out of hand. I went to college back in the mid-'50s, a long time ago, my friends, and I paid my room, board, tuition. I paid 100 cents on the dollar. I worked my way through school, and I'm not trying to say, I was different. Everybody did it back then. Very few of us had parents who could afford to pay our way. It wasn't as expensive as it is today. Even, looking at, the cost of living goes up and everything else, the cost of buying increases. because they didn't pay faculty members like they pay them now. College professors are getting astronomical salaries, and this is one of the things that has boosted the cost of college up. Well, putting that aside, as of about a month ago, it was announced that the amount of student loans out there, you know, kids go to the bank, they borrow the money, the government guarantees it. Guess what? It exceeds $1 trillion, $1 trillion for the first time. It makes you think we're talking about the national debt. Now, there are two people making money in this deal. The banks are making a ton of money, okay? They've got, even though recently Congress passed laws and the president was very proud to sign it, reducing the impact on the students when they have to pay back. The interest rates were brought down on how they worked, but they're still terrible, and I want to tell you why. By law, the interest rates are high, and if you screw up, if you miss a payment, you miss a couple of payments, they kicks up. The interest rate kicks up to 20 and 30%. I kid you not, 20 and 30%. How are these kids ever going to pay these debts off? How? Tell me. I don't know. Now, that bothers me that it's such a high number and the interest rates kick up, even though they said they took care of it. They took credit again, the government of the United States, the Congress and the president. Even though I'm an Obama lover, he's screwing up on a lot of things recently, and this is one of them. Well, let me tell you something else the government does here, and very few people are aware of this. The government gets a piece of the action. Yes, last year the government made a profit. They're paid by the banks or whoever here. They got $43 billion profit, $43.1 billion. Lots of money. Now, I want to tell you something. Only two entities otherwise in the United States made a larger profit. ExxonMobil, aren't we happy that the government, with regard to student loans, is in the same class as ExxonMobil, and Apple. Those two companies had a larger profit. Now, what am I saying? I think it's wrong for the government to get a piece of the action here. I think they want to help the students. It's bad enough as it is. These kids graduate with $100,000, $150,000 of debt. How, if they even can get a job, can they buy a home and pay a mortgage? It's impossible to even try to achieve the American dream. It is wrong. I want to stay now still with the United States government. I'm already smiling at what I'm about to share with you. It was announced this week that Medicare, and I love Medicare, by the way. I'm on Medicare. I'm not ashamed to say it. I'm over 65. I'm 78. It's the greatest thing going. And Obamacare should have been a Medicare program. They pay 80% of my bills, and elderly people have huge bills. And I have to buy another policy. It costs me $3,000 a year to cover the 20%. Horrific deal. It would have been great for America if we'd gone all Medicare, but we couldn't. Okay. It was announced this week that Medicare will now cover change surgery. You heard me, sex change surgery. Turn a boy into a girl or a girl into a boy. A government appeals board recently ruled to that effect. It had not covered sex change surgery since 1981 because they thought that the surgery was experimental and not enough known about it, and it was not safe. I want to tell you what this reminds me of, that we're now going to cover sex change surgery under Medicare because we go too far with everything in this country. You've got to stop at some point and say we're not going to cover this kind of a surgery. And you may think I'm cruel, but I think this is a stupid surgery to cover under Medicare. The Greeks. I'm very familiar with Greece, as you know. I spent a lot of time there. 3 years ago, everyone in Greece, by the way, has a pension. The government makes sure you have a pension. That isn't the reason the country's broke. The reason the country's broke is because of the Euro Union. Put that aside, though. 3 years ago, when they were at the height of their recession in Greece, they couldn't be more broke, okay? The government announced that from such and such a day forward, pedophilia was going to be covered as a medical disability, and if it was a medical disability, as had now been determined, a person could receive a government pension for it. Can you imagine adults who play with little children? They're sick in the head. You know, We've got to take care of them. This is an illness. This is not something that they voluntarily do or they willingly do. And since it's an illness, you are now pensioned off in Greece for the past 3 years if you are a pedophilia. Horrible. You know, I don't know where we're going in this country I'm talking about with the sex change surgery. There was a time, and I'm old enough to know these times and these progressions, when we only had heterosexual marriages, a man and a woman. Now we're into gay marriages, 2 men, 2 women, no problem. That's becoming the law everywhere in this country. I'll tell you what's coming next. We are on the verge of a third sex in this country, transgenders. You know what transgenders are. I'm talking about a man who thinks he's a woman, or a woman who thinks she's got a woman's body, but she thinks she's a man. There are surgeries for this, by the way, because they got to make a boy a girl or a girl a boy, okay? That's a sex change surgery, by the way, that's covered under Medicare. What's happening is this, and it's going to become a sex. Transgenderism is going to be your third sex. It's a big problem in this country. Something like 30 million people are transgenders, and I'm saying this with all seriousness. They are transgenders. They don't know where they belong. The state of California, since January 1, Governor Brown promoted it out there and got it passed, and it's the law now. Public grammar schools, public high schools. If you are a boy, you decide whether you want to use the boys' room or the girls' room. If you're a girl, you decide if you want to use the girls' room or the boys' room, wherever you're more comfortable. No one, of course, thinks about the kids who are not transgenders and how they might feel about this. But it's taking hold under the law. It's also taking getting involved, or the law is not paying attention to it, with this new Medicare change. They're going to pay for sex change surgeries, because if you're transgender, you want to be what you think you are, not what you were born as. My question is, and transgenderism within the next 10 years is going to be there as an acknowledged third sex, mark my words. Where do we go after that? Because sexually, everything is moving rapidly in this country. I'm not saying this is a joke, what I'm about to say, because if you asked me 20 years ago if gay people could marry, no way, it would never happen. If you told me 5 years ago that transgenders were going to be recognized as a third sex and have rights, no way would I have agreed, nor would any of you. The next thing in line, I know this sounds stupid, is bestiality. Somehow that's going to get worked into our law because everything else has. And am I comparing bestiality to these things? Yes, in the sense that it is a deviation each time. Once it's accepted and acknowledged as proper, it's no longer a deviation. But up to that time it isn't. I can't see where else we're going to go other than dogs and cows and everything else. Okay, now I want to talk about food. Food, the cost of food. We all know, anyone who goes to shop, anyone who buys groceries know that the cost of food keeps going up, and it goes up dramatically, okay? You know, last year, overall, the cost of food in the United States went up 22%. You know it because you know that every time you go to the grocery store, you're paying more and getting less, okay? You're paying more and you're getting less. You can't beat the system out there. Let me tell you about meat prices alone. April of this year, the cost of meat, the price of meat to you and me in the supermarket went up 3%. We say that isn't much, 3%. Well, that's the most it has gone up in 11 years in 1 month, and it was the second biggest spike in 1 month in 31 years. And do you know what the cost of meat went up last year? Overall food went up 22%. Vegetables, bananas, strawberries, lettuce, and meat. But the cost of meat alone went up 19%. Now, why getting so high? Why has it become such a burden on the American public? I'm going to tell you what they tell us, and then I'm going to tell you what I think. And you can buy it or not buy it. They tell us first droughts. They deny, corporate America, by the way, corporate America denies that we have global warming. And it is corporate America that produces your food now. You know that, don't you? 90% of the food we buy in this country, whether it's a vegetable, a fruit, or meat, 90% comes from 6 companies, produce it. 6 companies. People like Monsanto, Dow Chemical, they own these big agri-farms. The little farmer's gone. He's yesterday's news, okay? He's that tiny 10%. And they control everything that's going on. So they told us first there was a drought. Look, the drought in the Southwest, the drought in Mexico, there's not enough water. And if there's not enough water, the crops don't grow as easily. You don't get as much fruits and vegetables growing out there because we don't have enough water to nurture them and help them grow. Then they came up with this one last year. They said, the United States has been pushing for everyone in the world to be like this. Apologize, I have no control. This has to do with people who run this thing. They're in another state somewhere. It's totally screwed up tonight, but I hope I'm getting through in the fashion I am. I was talking about why the price of food is so high today. Well, they tell us it's the drought. We've had water problems. And if you don't have enough water, you can't grow enough food. Then they tell us, well, there's a big middle class in Asia, in Europe, in Africa. There are people who are making money, and now they have a middle class like they didn't have 10 years ago and 20 years ago. And as we had a middle class and we no longer have one, these people want to live like the middle class lived here. They want to eat filet mignon. They want good beef. They want rack of lamb. They want great fruits, huge strawberries, beautiful bananas, big potatoes. They want it all. And because they want it, we don't have enough to service them and to service us. The law of supply and demand. So the price has to go up because there's fewer items of product and there's a huge demand for them. Now they've recently told us, and this was in the past week, oil's another cause on the food. The cost of oil. We've got to truck the foodstuffs from one place to another. And when we're trucking on those highways, it takes gasoline. It takes an oil product. Well, who the hell didn't know this? All right? But I want to know this. The cost of oil, the cost of gasoline has been astronomical in this country for the last 10 or 15 years. It may go up or down a little bit, but it doesn't go dramatically down where it used to be, okay? So this is a new excuse they've come up with. Well, I'm going to tell you what I think. I think it's the 6 companies, the 6 major corporations that have the agri-farms that grow everything and control the food that goes into the supermarkets in this country to the tune of 90%. They're monopolies. They've got a monopoly on what you and I buy to eat. And you know what happens when someone has a monopoly. What do? They charge what they want. We're getting reamed, we're getting ripped off, and ain't much we can do about it right now. All right, we're going to move over now. I'm going to go to Venezuela. I want to go to Venezuela for a little while here. Hugo Chavez was president of Venezuela for many years. He was disliked by the United States. He hated us. He hated us terribly. He was a communist. He took over the country. But I'll tell you, he was, I say ballsy. I got to say it that way. A little bit like Putin is today. When he took over Venezuela and he was made president, he was elected president, the first thing he did was take the oil companies, take all the companies away from, Mobil, Exxon, and everybody else. He just said, get out, fellas. Venezuela owns the oil companies. They own the oil fields. They own everything in Venezuela. He nationalized the gasoline and the oil in Venezuela. Let me tell you how successful this was. He took a poor country. It never got dramatically rich, but he made the people richer. He gave everybody in his country periodically a check from the oil profits. This guy could have been president forever. Okay, he died of cancer 3 years ago. A fellow by the name of Maduro succeeds him. This guy's on his way out. There's going to be a coup. They're going to arrest him. They're going to shoot him, hang him, put him in trial. I don't know. The first thing they started running out of, he's been in business 3 years as president, 2 years ago, was toilet paper. The first product they didn't have enough of for people was toilet paper. And they have a factory that makes toilet paper. They couldn't make enough. They couldn't import enough. To this day, there is an acute shortage of toilet paper in Venezuela. I smile as I say it. It's hard to believe. That is a necessity, okay? And the people are upset. But besides that, you've got enough. Things are tough there. Inflation is 6% in Venezuela under this guy, all right? Electricity and water is rationed right now. And people protesting. You've got an opposition group. And in the world, bad things are going to happen in Venezuela. So bad that the Vatican and certain South American countries got together and tried to mediate some resolution between the opposition and Maduro's government. The negotiations failed so badly that they walked out of the country. The Catholic Church left, and all these other South American countries. In the meantime, Maduro's thrown the opposition in jail. They're going to, they're going to storm it like they stormed the Bastille in France. This is all so strange what's happening there. Do you know that Venezuela has the world's oil reserves? The world's largest oil reserves are in Venezuela, not Saudi Arabia. They are the fourth largest supplier of oil to the United States. There's no reason why they should not be financially successful today and every day, okay? What they need, and this sounds funny, but I'm serious, they need a Putin down there. They need some, and Chavez was a form of a Putin, but Chavez was Putin all the time. Putin's just started pushing people around the last 6 months. They need a Putin to show them the way down there and get them on the right track, because right now, incompetency is the government. Now I want to stay with Putin for a moment. He's got to be challenged. He's got to be stopped. I don't know how we are going to accomplish it, but it's got to be done. It's not in my pay scale, the decision. I'm not elected. I don't have the responsibility to make that decision. But there are people up there who should know how to do this, and we're not doing it. Why do I say this? Russia's greatest export, 75% of Russia's income comes from its exportation of gas and oil. Without gas and oil going out of the country to be sold, they'd be broke. That's all they got. They got nothing else. Okay. They've done in the last 6 months. They're supplying oil anew to North Korea. They're going to supply, they already got the deal to supply oil to South Korea. They're going to go through North Korea with the oil pipes. They recently made a deal, 3 or 4 weeks ago with China, a 30-year, $400 billion deal to supply China with oil. And you know what we're talking about this past week in the news? That just maybe, and this could be a real development maybe, Putin, Russia, and Japan are going to make a deal the same as was made with China. Japan needs oil desperately. Why do you think Japan bombed Pearl Harbor? We cut off their supply of oil to the United States at the time. Okay? We're not cutting it off now. They are our friends. We've supported them since Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Am I back on with my show? I guess so. I don't know, but I'll finish. Russia is talking about piping gas into Japan, because the far eastern part of Russia is very close to Japan, and it won't be hard to run a pipeline under the water into the Japanese coast. Where are we now? Last item I'm going to talk about, and I hope you're hearing me. We don't do anything to punish the banks for all the wrongdoing they're involved in. The mortgage scandal. They gave us the recession of 2008. We loaned them money. They paid us back, but they didn't loan the money to anybody else. Wall Street kept it, gave none of it to Main Street. Bankers are making a ton of money. CEOs are getting $20, $30, $40 million dollar a year. This is wrong. And they're making a ton of money, and I talked about this last week or the week before. They're making a ton of money off of money laundering. The drug cartels in Mexico are money laundering money through American and European banks. You take an American bank that has branch offices in Mexico. The druggies, they can deposit their ill-gotten gains, tons of millions, billions of dollars in the American branches. Then they can take it out in the American branches in the United States. And the process of money laundering has started. They make billions of dollars by doing this. But they say we cannot be held legally responsible because we really don't know that it's drug money, which is a crock. And somebody's got to process the money, and we're processing it. Well, it happened in Guatemala. The recent president Alfonso Portillo did it, and they just put him in jail for money laundering. If they can put a country's president in jail, they can put a bank president in jail, and we've got to start doing that. This is the show for this week. I apologize for how screwed up it has been. I really feel terrible. It won't be this way next week, guaranteed. If you enjoyed the show, buy my book, The World Upside Down, on Amazon.com. The World Upside Down by Louis Patron. It's just like the things I talk about here. If you don't enjoy this show, don't even consider buying the book. It has been good to be with you again this week. I look forward to talking with